Hrungnir. Odin himself was once dashing through the air on his 8-footed steed, Sleipnir, when he attracted the attention of the giant Hrungnir, who proposed a race, declaring that Gulfaxi, his steed, could rival Sleipnir in speed. In the heat of the race, Hrungnir did not notice the direction in which they were going, until, in the vain hope of overtaking Odin, he urged his steed to the very gates of Valhalla. Discovering then where he was, the giant grew pale with fear, for he knew that he had jeopardized his life by venturing into the stronghold of the gods, his hereditary foes. The Aesir, however, were too honorable to take even an enemy at a disadvantage. And, instead of doing him harm, they asked him into their banqueting halls, where he proceeded to indulge in liberal potations of the heavenly mead set before him. He soon grew so excited that he began to boast of his power, declaring he would come some day and take possession of Asgard, which he would destroy, together with the gods, save only Freya and Sif, upon whom he gazed with an admiring leer. The gods, knowing he was not responsible, let him talk unmolested, but Thor, coming home just then from one of his journeys, and hearing his threat to carry away the beloved Sif, flew into a terrible rage. He furiously brandished his hammer, with intent to annihilate the boaster. This the gods would not permit, however, and they quickly threw themselves between the irate thunderer and their guest, imploring Thor to respect the sacred rites of hospitality, and not to desecrate their peacestead by shedding blood. Thor was at last induced to bridle his wrath, but he demanded that Hrungnir should appoint a time and a place for a holmgang, as a northern duel was generally called. Thus challenged, Hrungnir promised to meet Thor at Griotunagard, the confines of his realm, 3 days later, and departed somewhat sobered by the fright he had experienced. When his fellow giants heard how rash he had been, they chided him sorely, but they took counsel together in order to make the best of a bad situation. Hrungnir told them that he was to have the privilege of being accompanied by a squire, whom Thialfi would engage in fight. Wherefore they proceeded to construct a creature of clay 9 miles long and proportionately wide, whom they called Mokurkielfi, or the Mist Warder. As they could find no human heart big enough to put in this monster's breast, they secured that of a mare, which, however, kept fluttering and quivering with apprehension. The day of the duel arrived. Hrungnir and his squire were on the ground, awaiting the arrival of their respective opponents. The giant had not only a flint heart and skull, but also a shield and a club of the same substance, and therefore deemed himself well nigh invincible. Thialfi came before his master, and soon after there was a terrible rumbling and a shaking, which made the giant apprehensive that his enemy would come up through the ground and attack him from underneath. He therefore followed a hint from Thialfi and stood upon his shield. A moment later, however, he saw his mistake, for while Thialfi attacked Mokurkielfi with a spade, Thor came with a rush upon the scene and flung his hammer full at his opponent's head. Hrungnir, to ward off the blow, interposed with his stone club, which was shivered into pieces that fell all over the earth, supplying all the flint stones thereafter to be found, and one fragment sank deep into Thor's forehead. As the god dropped, fainting to the ground, his hammer crashed against the head of Hrungnir, who fell dead beside him, in such a position that one of his ponderous legs was thrown over the recumbent god. Thou now remindest me how I with Hrungnir fought, that stout-hearted Jotun, whose head was all of stone, yet I made him fall and sink before me. Seaman Zeta, Thrope's translation. Thialfi, who, in the meanwhile, had disposed of the great clay giant with its cowardly mare's heart, now rushed into his master's assistance, but his efforts were unavailing, nor could the other gods, whom he quickly summoned, raise the pinioning leg. While they were standing there helplessly wondering what they should do next, Thor's little son Magni came up. According to varying accounts, he was then only 3 days or 3 years old, but he quickly seized the giant's foot and, unaided, set his father free, declaring that he had only been summoned sooner, he would easily have disposed of both the giant and the squire. This exhibition of strength made the gods marvel greatly, and helped them to recognize the truth of the various predictions, which one and all declared that their descendants would be mightier than they, would survive them, and would rule in their turn over the new heaven and earth. To reward his son for his timely aid, Thor gave him the steed Gulfaxi, or the Golden Maned, to which he had fallen heir by right of conquest. And Magni ever after rode his marvelous horse, which almost equaled the renowned Sleipnir in speed and endurance. So that was Thor and Hrungnir, the 7th section of Chapter 4 of Myths of the Norsemen by Helene A Guerber, Thor. I will be working my way through this book section by section, and if there are any other public domain books that you would like for me to read, please leave a comment below. Did you enjoy this video? Then subscribe for more, and be sure to check me out on Facebook and Patreon. Thank you for listening, and have a lovely evening.